Robert Chambers here from NEKmusic.com, teaching you how to master the art of playing the piano by ear in 1 year. And I will be one step closer once we correct all of this incorrect theory that is taught in 99% of the music curriculum around the world. Now, today I'm going to be covering some of the incorrect theories regarding minor intervals. So you can actually find minor intervals, minor seconds, you can get minor thirds, minor fifths. I've heard people call it minor fifths. I don't know where they got that from. Maybe not the established music teachers, but I've heard people actually on YouTube teaching this. Minor sixths and minor sevenths. Now, what if I told you that those intervals and how it's taught are incorrect? Now, not all of them. There's only one of them that are correct, and I will be covering. But let's explore a song that has a lot of these minor intervals in it. It goes like this. Gospel that. Let's add some gospel to it. Let's hit with the beat. Yeah. But anyhow, this incorrect theory is taught in 99% of the world right now. So I just want to correct it because I'm that actually 1%, and I want to help you to see music a lot clearer. Now, I'm saying it's incorrect. Minor seconds, minor sixth, minor seventh, and sometimes some people have said minor sixth. Those are incorrect theory. Now, I'm going to explain my explanation. I know a lot of people have been saying, we want to hear your explanation. Well, before I give you my explanation, I'm going to restate the traditional explanation that is out there, because I know there's going to be a lot of people that want to share their opinion without even actually watching this video all the way through to the end. So therefore, they're going to put comments, which I do welcome, but if they're going to repeat the same things over again, I don't think it's very productive of time, productive of myself and your time and my time if we're going to be spending time talking about the same thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to reiterate what some other traditional theorists have said about explaining how the minor seconds and minor sixth and minor seventh intervals are correct music theory. Now, my position is that it's incorrect, and I just say, I mean, there's a lot of great things that are happening in our world today. Technology has advanced and knowledge has increased in these days. Now, if those are fellow brothers and sisters in the physics realm, if they can come out and say that all the physics textbooks are incorrect, there's a lot of incorrect theories that are in there, why can't we say the same thing with our music? There's something in the music that I say doesn't have to be so complex, because it's really not that complex. So I'm not going to say to throw out the music books, but I will say that in all of the music books, if you teach this, you are teaching errors in music. You are actually creating theory to offset the other incorrect theory that you have. Now, I'm not saying all of your theories are incorrect, and I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying this specific area is incorrect. Okay, so let's look at the traditional thought about the theory behind minor intervals. The traditional thought of minor intervals is that when you flatten a particular number, that makes it minor. So if you have the 1, you have the 2, right, which is D in the key of C, you flatten it, it becomes a minor second. If you go to the 5th, well, not the 5th. If you go to the 3rd, you flatten it, becomes minor. If you go to the 6th, you flatten it, 1 semitone, it becomes minor. If you flatten the 7, 1 semitone, okay, you actually becomes a minor 7. So that's how it works. So some people have said minor 5th interval, but from what I know from the theorists, one of the theorists that actually commented and challenged my views, they said that's incorrect. So I'm like, yeah, because that would be really crazy if you're teaching it that way. Okay, so, but let me ask you this, or actually let me say it like this before I ask my question. I believe that there's only one place a minor should be referred to. When you hear the term minor, it should only be referred to the 3rd. It's only to the 3rd, when you bring it down 1 semitone, that the minor should be applied to. No other intervals, only the 3rd. Now, here's my question. Which do you think is easier? Learning that minor intervals refer to 3 or 4 different places, or 1 place? 3 or 4 different places, or 1 place? Which one would be easier to learn? I think I'll go with the 1 place. But anyhow, let me just present the traditional argument that's out there. Let's hear what others have to say about my views. Okay, so let's go. All right, so here's theorist number 1. They say minor seconds, minor 6, and minor 7ths are based on how the 3rd moves. We know that the 3rd goes down 1 semitone, right? So they said, for example, C and E is a major 3rd. Now, if you hear that sound, you can tell it's a major 3rd. It's a major 3rd, all right? That is correct. No, I'm actually adding that part in. Now, let's get back to the theorist comment. They said, when you flatten the E, 1 semitone, it becomes E flat. There it is, E flat, a black key. All right, E flat. Therefore, the major 3rd becomes a minor 3rd. Okay, it's more, and they say it's more about the concept of intervals and the quality of the intervals. The same thing applies to the seconds, 6s, and also the 7ths. They said it's more about the move of a half step down. Now, so that you know, a half step is 1 semitone lower. A half step is 1 semitone lower. Okay? Then they said 4ths and 5ths are different because they are purest intervals. I mean, purest intervals. I mean, I know that they're all white, but what makes the 4th and the 5th more pure? I think I have an answer for that, but anyways, that's another video. Okay, but they said 4th and 5th are purest intervals, meaning that they have an open quality to them. Okay, because of their pure quality. Sounds heavenly, right? Sorry. Okay, so because of their purest intervals, meaning that they have an open quality to them. Because of their pure qualities, they are called perfect intervals. They cannot be made minor or major. They can be raised a half step, becoming augmented. So they're saying if you have the F and you go up 1 semitone higher, that's augmented. All right? Or lowered. If you lower it a half step, it becomes diminished. Oops, sorry, I slipped on one of the challenges I have with that theory. Okay, so when you lower it, it becomes diminished. Now the premise is that it's all about the intervals and the quality of each specific interval. Okay, let me interject one thing right here. They're saying that even though, just like all these numbers that move a semitone to become minor, 1 semitone lower, they become minor. All of these other ones, the 5th and the 4th, and I think they say the 1, when they go down 1 semitone, it doesn't become minor. So they're still moving 1 semitone, but it doesn't become minor. And they're saying the reason is because it's a pure interval. Because it's a purest interval. Okay. But here's the thing. When you take here's my interjectory here. So you have your C and you have the fourth. That's your fourth. They say when you go one semitone lower than your four, it becomes a diminished fourth. Now listen to the sound. Fourth. Now listen to that sound. That's why I say when you learn how to play by ear, you actually, by ear properly, you understand the language of music. Now listen to this. Now remember earlier this person said that when you take C and you take E, that's a major third. Now listen to the sound of major third. I'll play it. Now listen to the sound of a diminished fourth. I'll play a major third again. And I'll play a diminished fourth. Now, do you see the dilemma I have with that? They sound the exact same. Now, this is a diminished chord. Let me play a diminished chord for you. That's a diminished chord. That's another type of diminished chord. There's another type of diminished chord. Now, let me play a major chord. That's a major chord, a little bit more happier. Here's a diminished. That's like, you know, in the old movies, they have those villains. Right? Diminished chord, right? Now, here's a major. Happy, diminished, type of villain type of thing, okay? So, but they're saying now that this C and E now is a diminished also interval. Now, when you listen to it, that doesn't sound like a diminished. So I see a problem with that. That's some of the incorrect things that I'm showing in the actual traditional theory. But here, listen, this is the kicker. This is what they say after all of that explanation. Then they say, by the way, this concept makes more sense when you read music. By the way, this concept makes more sense when you read music. So basically, when you take your eyes off of the piano, where you close your ears off so you can't hear that it's just a major third, then when we put it on paper, we can confuse you by calling it a diminished fourth. I have a problem with that. So I said, thanks for my explanation. I said, I do see some inconsistencies with this theory, but I'll address it in my video. Thanks. Okay? And they said, no problem. Okay? Then I said, I hope you're aware that I do disagree, but once again, I said to me, when something is flattened, that is usually equal to one semitone lower. A flattened third or fourth is still a distance of one semitone. Why the change in name and function? For example, minor and diminished. I said, I'll be covering it in my video. Then they said, well, you're correct. Flattening a note is equal to a semitone, a half step lower. But the only way, this is it again, the only way this will make sense is if you read music. So then they say, for example, but they are acknowledged, they're very bright. They said, if you hear an A flat, here's A flat, okay? This is an A flat. For those of you that are musically inclined, you can see the A flat, okay? Now, you can say it's A flat or you can say it's G sharp. Correct, it's the same note. The only way you would know what it is if you read it in a musical context. Let me say that again. They said A flat, this is A flat, G sharp, same key, but they're saying the only way I'll know what it is, now I'm looking at it and it's a black key and it's in the middle of the three black keys. But they said the only way I'll really know what it is if I see it read it in a musical context. I don't need to read that this is an A flat. I don't need to read that this is a G sharp. It has two names. Why the unnecessary theory? So then they say, knowing what sharps and flats belong to whatever key, that would clear it up, which I do know. When it comes to the interval of the fourth, it's called a perfect interval due to the pure quality. Once again, perfect intervals, fourths, fifths, and octaves, which is just the one, okay, can only be diminished or augmented. So once again, we created these extra rules because we had to offset some of these other rules that weren't necessary. Okay, so, but then they acknowledged, then they said, I understand that if you diminish a perfect fourth, C and F, and you flatten F to E, for example, audibly, when you hear, you will hear a major third. Exactly, which is correct. However, you have to look at it in the context in musical notation. Once again, don't worry about what you hear, even though it sounds like that. It sounds correct as a major third, but keep your eyes on the paper. Then they say, hence reading will make this clearer. Mind you, I'm not dismissing the fact that some things in music can be ambiguous. Written music, knowing your key signatures and circle of fifths, fourths, makes a big difference in understanding. He said, just to add, minor, diminished, etc. is used to describe the interval. The interval is the building block of music. Looking at the musical notation will bring this to light. I think we are bringing it to light today. All right, so for example, they're using this terminology only to intervals, and that's one of my problems. Because you use this incorrect theory just on intervals, and then you say dismiss all that theory when you now apply this to chords, that's where there's a disconnect. People are getting lost. You shouldn't have to disconnect an interval from a chord because it's the same building block of music. And that's what I'm saying. So I said, thanks for your response. I think you're digging a hole for yourself, but I said you're gonna love my video, which is what we're gonna be getting into. Stay tuned, watch it all the way through, right? Music principles, I said music principles should not contradict themselves. When you hear minor, it should mean minor. When you hear diminish, it should mean diminish. According to what you're saying, a minor and diminished interval are one semitone lower than a particular key. I said, for example, in the key of C, F to E, or E to E flat. I said you may have to visit the theory on diminished seventh. By the way, that's another video I will be posting concerning the diminished seven, which is incorrect theory regarding the name of that chord. But I understand where they're coming from because they started here, so they had to create something else to actually go further. And like I said, I covered that in another post. Actually, I have a video on that already. Very amateur one. Okay? So they said, I beg to differ. If you know how to read music, theory will make more sense. My question is, theory supposed to make music easier or make music harder? If it's making music harder, then that theory can be considered not as good as correct theory. They said, you also have to know the qualities of intervals as well. They said diminished is only used on perfect intervals. And I heard that already. And and they asked me now, I don't know if you can read or not, but musical notation will make this clear. So basically asking me, do you know how to read? I'm like, no, I'm not confused by that. I mean, I read at a probably 1 out of 10 level, but I can understand music and I can play songs by ear. So if you were to play, if you were going to be playing songs like... I understand the music, so I don't read that, but I can hear it, and I understand what those geniuses like Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart, I understand how they came up with what they came up with because I haven't confused myself with certain theories that are taught. So that's exactly what I'm saying. So to answer your question, I don't really read the music, but I do play by ear, and I teach people how to do that. Not only just play by ear, but understand the music that they are playing because music is a language. Now, they said, yes. So basically, that's some of the thoughts that are out there. And then they actually sent me this diagram. They said, okay, well, this will make more sense. They said, you have to learn how to read and different things like that. Then they said, this will make more sense. So they gave me this diagram, okay? So they were actually honestly trying to help me to see the light. So here's the diagram. Now the challenge I have with this, it's saying exactly what they were saying. When you go down one semitone from one of these intervals, it's a minor. When you go down from another interval, the perfect intervals they call them, then it's diminished. But that's what I'm saying, adding these extra rules is just making music unnecessarily complex. Then they say, let's say if you're at the 6, which is A, you go one semitone below A, that's minor. One more semitone below A, and that becomes an A diminished, which is 2 semitones. I'm like, first they said a diminished is 1 semitone below a particular note, but then they justified it by saying it's only for the pure intervals. Then they say they take the 6 and you go down 2 semitones, it becomes a diminished. I'm just saying, make up our mind. Is a diminished 1 semitone below a note, or is a minor 1 semitone below a note? Now the diminished now seems to have no place. Sometimes it's a 1, sometimes it's 2. So it's a 2 when you have to on the 5 and the 4, or the G and F, and it's 1 semitone below the G and F is now minor, and then or diminished which is the 5 and the 4, or if you go down from the 6 and the 7s and the 2s, 1 semitone it's minor, go down 2 semitones it's now diminished. First of all, that double diminished thing does not exist. I know that we're stretching the truth, but it's not designed. That in itself, I would say that's an accident. So you can say with the accidentals and so forth. Anyways, I'll cover that another time. But here's the deal. I posted that, as you can see, that's some of the traditional theory that is out there, and so forth. But I just said it's wrong. It's wrong. Going down 1 semitone is simply that and nothing else. 1 semitone should be referred to one thing. I asked the question, is the characteristic of a diminished 1 semitone or 2 semitones below a note? I said, is it 1 semitone or 2 semitones below a note? I said, by the way, I asked, can you play me a minor 7th chord? A minor 7th chord. Then I said, okay, that's a minor 7th. So according to them, a minor 7th, because we had the minor 7 in traditional theory means that you should have some type of 1, some type of 3, some type of 5, and some type of 7 in the chord. So because it's minor 7, that means that the 7th should be flattened. So the B should be flattened to B flat, and then the E should be flattened to that, and to the E flat. So that's why you have a minor 7. And then the 5 doesn't go down 1 semitone because they said that's the purest interval. So because it's a purest interval, when they see the term minor, it doesn't affect it. But my challenge is this: that is not consistent theory. Now, obviously, and then also part of the theory is that when they call a chord a minor 7, the minor, they say, oh my gosh, why the contradiction? They say that the minor refers to the 3rd, and the 7th, when you see the 7th by itself, it automatically means that it's a flattened 7th. So you're supposed to remember that whenever you don't see the word major, that means it's always a flattened 7th. Okay. So let's give them that. So it's always a flattened 7th, but here's what they say there. They say now when you say minor, when you see that, it only refers to the 3rd, which is what I've been saying all along. So why now, when we deal with intervals, we use a term minor for all these other intervals, but when we use a term minor in a chord context, it's now all of a sudden, only for the intervals. So for example, here's my question. So you have your minor 7. So how about, I said, play me a minor 6. A minor 6 has C, E flat, G, and A. So if that was correct, a minor 6, then therefore the minor 6 should be a flattened 6, right? It should have a flattened 6 in it. It should have a flattened 3rd. It only has a flattened 3rd. Why? Because minor only has to do with the 3rd, nothing else. Nothing else. Your very chords. I said play a minor 2nd chord. Minor 2nd, or add 9. Minor 2nd. Play those chords for me. That doesn't exist. Because a minor 2nd, you're supposed to have that in there. We're creating all these things. Intervals and chords are not separate. All right? So I said, I hope they're starting to see the inconsistencies with this type of teaching. So I'm not going to belabor that point. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to just correct give you the correct theory, the correct understanding of this interval. But one thing I did want to do, I was just testing the waters a little bit. I said, what key would D flat? Okay, here's D flat. I said, what key would D flat be the 7th degree in? This is D, this is D flat. I said, what key would D flat be the 7th degree in? And what would be the diminished 7th interval of that key? So I'm asking all of you music theorists, what key would D flat be the 7th degree in? Look at it. There it is. So this is D flat. It's the black key in the group of 2 black keys. It's the one right there. All right, to the left of the 2 black keys, okay? And what would be the diminished 7th interval of that key? So here we go. I already know what they're going to say. Then they say a diminished interval is created one of 2 ways. first from a perfect interval. So they're just rehearsing all this theory that they've been given, you know, fourth and fifth and octaves. And secondly, from a minor interval. So after you have a minor, then they said the first set with the perfect intervals are straightforward, where you take a perfect fifth, C and G, all right, and bring G down a half step to F sharp. There it is, therefore becoming a diminished fifth. Due to the fact that perfect intervals can only be made augmented or diminished. Now I'm repeating this because I know people that are going to try, want to give their opinion, they're going to be saying the exact same things, and you're seeing, okay, let me continue. Be made augmented or diminished. The second case has more steps. We will start with an interval of a major seventh, so C and B. There it is. To make it a minor seventh, you flat the B. So we flatten the B, it becomes B flat. So it becomes C and B flat. To make it diminished, you flat the B flat again. So we flatten it again, and it becomes B double flat. Ah, that's what I was trying to get to. And he goes, there's a symbol for that, or better known as A. I'm like, thank you. Why we complicate? When we teach a beginner, we don't teach them B double flat, B, C, D, E, F, G. We teach them A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A is A. A is A. It doesn't change, but we call it B double flat. That's unnecessary theory. You're making music harder than it really is. Then they said it's called B double flat because when you flat a minor interval, it becomes diminished. Once again, a very good student of the traditional theory. Just keep in mind that the intervals are based on the major scale. I know those. Then they go, now to the diminished chord, we take the concept of major seventh, flattening the major seventh to minor seventh, all right? And flatten the minor seventh to a diminished seventh. There you go. If you look at a C diminished seventh chord, it is made up of stacked minor thirds. Notice the words, minor thirds. For example, C, E flat, G flat, and B double flat, which I cringe when I hear that, B double flat. It's really just an A. This chord should be called a C diminished 6. But anyhow, that's another video that I've actually posted already. It's spelled out this way because sharps and flats aren't supposed to mix. And you put in brackets, classical theory. There you go. Classical theory, which is just their opinion. Okay? Which, it's just unnecessarily complex. Now, I'm not confused by it. It doesn't matter to me what they call it. But for the majority, for the 95% of the people out there, they are getting confused by these things. All right? So let's correct them to make it easier for the world to learn music. All right? So they said each note is spelled out that shows the relationship of a minor third. Now, to the question about D flat being a seventh degree. Now, they say if you check out the circle of fifths or fourths, depending on which direction you are going, D flat, here's D flat, they said it isn't a seventh degree because it is actually C sharp. Now, I'll play D flat, listen to the sound if you can't see it, and I'll play C sharp. I'll play D flat again. You could close your eyes if you like. And I'll play C sharp, D flat, C sharp. It's the same key. So they said it isn't the seventh degree because it's actually C sharp. Now I set up that question, you know, but come on. That's the type of things, the traditions that they're holding on to. They don't want to acknowledge something that's correct when it's right in front. I said, what key is D flat the seventh degree in? They said, no, D flat isn't the seventh degree. They said C sharp. It's the same key, right? Degree in the key of D. They said, keep in mind you have enharmonic tones. Now, let me tell you something. Enharmonic tones should only be applied to where on the piano we can see them are only black keys. That's how God created it, so that only the enharmonic tones only refer to the black keys. Nothing else. If you add all these other notes, you're adding more to the commandments. Okay, there's only 10 commandments. In this case, there's 5 here. All right? Right? So they said, keep in mind you have enharmonic tones, meaning that one note can have 2 to 3 names depending on the musical circumstance. No. White keys have 1 name, black keys have 2 names. That's it. Okay? That's the correct theory. All right? So for example, C sharp and D flat sound. They say sound and are the same note audibly. However, musical context differentiates the two. Very good explanation. That's why I'm glad this person commented. They said the diminished seventh in the key of D would be C flat, better known as B. C flat, better known as B. Like I say, for a beginner, is it easier at the beginning to learn A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or A, C double flat, D, E, F, G? Obviously B. So let's keep it simple. All right? They said C sharp is the major 7th. So anyhow, that's where we ended off. And I said, thank you for everything that you've commented on. You pretty much has given me all the evidence I need. But I was actually serious. I was actually serious. I just needed this evidence. Now, I wasn't trying to set it up to be mean. I just wanted someone that was trained in that theory, that was qualified, and this person is a great pianist, a great person, and they're qualified to speak on this area. And I know what the theory they're going to come with. I just say it's just way too complex and unnecessarily complex. So, all of that to say, I'm going to now give you the answer. I'm going to give you the correct theory, which all right, and I'm going to talk about it. Like I said, here's the reason why the term minor is talking about the third and not talking about other numbers. It's not talking about the second. It's not talking about the sixth. Not talking about the seventh. It's only talking about the third, which third goes down a semitone. That's minor. Okay? Now, for you to understand this, you're going to need to understand, not music history, but you're going to need to understand the origin of music.
Origin of music has eluded musicologists, professors, and scientists for centuries. They've succeeded to come up with theories, but not a comprehensive explanation. In May 2012, Robert Chambers was in Zimbabwe to perform at the Jazz Festival with jazz singer Prudence. He was also to conduct music workshops on playing the piano by ear. While preparing, he prayed a prayer that would forever change his life and the history of music. He prayed, "God, I want more of you in the method you gave me." For the next 4 months, he was downloaded with revelation that reveals undeniable evidence that God created music. The proof? Musical concepts like scales, chords fingering, progressions, and more can all be found in the Holy Bible. Coincidence? You be the judge. To get more info on Robert's paradigm-shattering book, Revelations, The Origin of Music, visit www.theoriginofmusic.com.
Now you need to understand the origin of music. Now I'm not talking about music history. I'm talking about the origin of music. Now, before I share this answer, and I hope that you will start to see it correctly, I just wanted to just give you quickly my story. I grew up playing piano by ear at the age of 3. And I started picking up songs that my sisters were trying to learn when they were taking lessons, but they thought I was too young to take lessons. So what ended up happening is they told my music teacher, they said, well, you got this little 3-year-old, he's playing the songs that the sisters can't play when they're reading the music. But they said I was too young. So at that young age, though, they said, oh, well, he's just kind of too young to learn how to play piano. So I said, okay, that's great. Actually, no, I didn't say that was great. I was actually bawling. I was crying. And I said, I didn't know why at the time. I just thought they were punishing me or so. But I said, you know what, I'm crying. I said, if you won't teach me how to learn music, I'm going to learn music myself. And then when I learn, I'm going to teach everyone how to do the exact same thing. All right, so I was this little 3-year-old kid making all these goals and so forth in terms of music. And it turned out by the time I was 4, I started going to school. We started to sing a lot. We used to sing, in school, we used to sing. Oh Canada, our national anthem. We used to sing it. So I'd come home and I would play that song. And we'd go through series of songs that I would hear at school, come home and play it. My parents would be like, whoa, he's playing. So I just started to play everything I heard. And by the time I was age 7, I started to play in church and just played in church since that age and playing by ear. So God actually, I know that it was God that gave me a special gift on how to play by ear. I'm not the only person that's able to play by ear, but He also gave me a special gift on how to understand the language of music. And that understanding has enabled me to play songs that I choose I want to play without having to have to read it, and so forth. So he's giving me, and I actually cover that in my course called the NEQ Music System, how to do that. Now, I believe I had an answer. Now I know I have an answer on how music works, in terms of understanding a lot easier. But I was in Zimbabwe. I was in Zimbabwe for the Jazz Festival. I was playing in the Jazz Festival for a wonderful artist named Prudence. And I was also in Zimbabwe to do workshops on how to play piano by ear and understand the language of music. And I said, you know what? I prayed. I said, God, I know you've given me the answer. I know you gave me the answer on how to understand the language of music. And before I give this answer, I want more of you in it. I want more of you in it. And once I said that prayer, I was downloaded with revelation on how everything that is understood and played and read in music can be found in the Bible. You heard that correctly. Everything that is taught, or everything, all the things that are correct about music, why it works, fingering, all of those things can be found in the Bible. I was downloaded with this information for about 4 months straight. I was excited out of my mind. That was last year. It was May 2012. I'll never forget it from when it started. And I could not sleep for the last 4 months. My wife was like, oh my goodness, what do you get? I'm like, look at this. God created everything. I mean, I knew he created everything. But this, like having this revelation, it was like, oh my gosh. So anyhow, so let me give you some of this revelation so you can understand that the term minor was only designed to be referred to the third, nothing else. And here's a taste of my book and course that's coming out called Revelation, the Origin of Music. I'll start with this. God created music. Music is an image. Specifically, music is an image of God. How can I say that? I'll answer it like this. No one can look at God and survive. You think the sun is bright? The Bible says that God dwells in unapproachable light. If you read 1 Timothy 6:16, this is what it says. Who only hath immortality, let's talk about Jesus with God, dwelling in the light which no man can approach unto, whom no man hath seen nor can see, to whom be honor and power everlasting. Amen. All right? See, God, he has to cast images so that we can see, hear, or feel him, because he's a God of covenant. And once again, we can't look at him and survive. So an image of covenant is the rainbow. Let me give you an example. The rainbow. Whenever it rains, a rainbow appears. Why? Because after the flood, God made a covenant with Noah that he would no longer wipe out the human race with a flood ever again. And Noah represented all of mankind. Now the sign of this covenant would be a rainbow in the sky. It is no coincidence that a rainbow is simply light reflecting in a water droplet. And this image, guess what? You can see this image. Another image of covenant is music. I like to say that music is illuminated sound. When you can hear it, it's illuminated sound, because music is the glory or the light of God in the sound. The image you can hear and you can feel. You see, the original purpose of music is to glorify God. The current purpose of music is still to glorify God. But because of the fall of man through Adam, the other purpose of music is to validate God's word. Why? Because it validates him. He is music and he is the word. John 1:1-3 says this. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him. Without him was not anything made that was made. End of story. I could just end there. But I'll say it like this. The Word of God and music cannot contradict each other because it's him. The Word and God cannot contradict because it's him. So the reason why the word minor is only to be used in conjunction with the third is because God made it like that to validate his word. Let's read a little bit more. In the book of Genesis, it records that in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now, this creative process was done in 7 days. Mind you, he only created on 6 out of the 7 days, and on the 7th day, he rested from all his work. So let's fast forward to day 6 in terms of creation. What was created in day 6? Yes, the beasts of the earth, but more specifically, mankind. We were made in the image of God, male and female. Now you can read that in Genesis 1:26 to 31. Okay? But isn't it interesting that if you look up one of these definitions of male and female in the dictionary, they make references to being linked to sound and also music. One of the dictionary's translations. I'll get it for you and get back to you. But remember, God is music. So I hear someone saying, stone him, he's a heretic. I also hear another person saying, now Robert, how does this justify the minor only referring to the third and the validation of God's word? Well, it's very simple. God is music. In the book of Revelation 4, verse 5, it talks about the 7 spirits of God, which is the Holy Spirit, being before the throne of God. All music scholars know that the sound of music is the sound of a major scale. And the major scale comprises of 7 different notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the 8th is just starts again. Now sometimes this is also referred to scale degrees. Coincidence? 7 spirits of God, 7 notes in a major scale? I don't think so. Every music scholar knows the original chords that go on these numbers. If you don't know them, I suggest getting started with my Trinity music system. Or if you do know them, but you don't understand why and how you got them, either because you did a Google search or someone told you or showed you on YouTube what they were, I suggest that you get started with my Trinity music system. Okay? But now, even though I'm going to say what they are, please don't consider this as learning or understanding them. I'm doing this just so that I can finally get to the point. I can hear a lot of people saying, get to the point. You've been harping on this thing for so long. Give me your answer. Okay? So, and those of you that disagree with me that have been watching all the way up until this point, thank you for watching. You only have to watch this one time. Okay? So here's my point. Point number 1. God is the beginning. He is the first. He is number 1. The chord that is used on number 1, or you can say the first degree, and I'm going to use C as my example key. First scale degree is a major chord. Is a major chord. All right, that's how it's going to go. So it's a major chord on the 1. Point number 2. God created man in His image. God created mankind on which day? Exactly. He created him on the 6th day. The chord that is used on this number 6, or the 6th scale degree, is a minor chord. Okay? A minor chord is a little less than a major chord. See, we are in the image of God, but we are not God. I'll say that again. We are in the image of God, but we are not God. The difference between a major and a minor chord, major, minor, is that the third is flattened and nothing else. Nothing else changes. Nothing else changes. Okay? So remember, music has to validate the word of God. I hear someone saying, but Robert, I need more proof that the minor is symbolic of man being the image of God. Well, basically you are saying that you need more revelation. So I'll share some with you. Even though I go into much more facts and details and examples in my book, Revelation, the Origin of Music, I'm still going to break some. I'll just give you what I have right now. See, according to what I'm saying, what you know so far is that God is number 1. And the number 1, I'm going to teach you some more numerology. Number 1 is the number of unity. For something to be considered united, it is usually comprised of more than one thing that are cohesive. For example, if we want a country to be together in decisions, we may use a phrase, we want our country to be united on this decision. When we want all the nations of the world to agree, we form the United Nations. So like I said, God is Number one, because he is perfectly united with himself. I'll break it down to earth. I'll bring it back down to earth, actually. A major chord is three individual notes played at the same time to form one chord. Three individual notes played at the same time to form one chord. I'll say it like this. A major chord comprises of three that are perfectly one. I'll leave it there with you. Actually, while I'm here, I'd also like to state that that's the origin of the meaning and the reason for the known musical term perfect unison being associated with the number one, or the first scale degree. See, you also know that, so here's another thing that you know, according to what I'm saying. You also know that man is number 6, the image of God. Therefore, man is the minor. To drive this home, you need to understand a little bit more of the correct numerology. So I'll cover a few. Like I said, number 1 is the number of unity, which is the number of God. All right? The number 3 is the number of manifestation. For example, the process of a plant. 1, a seed is planted. 2, it gets nourished with water, sunlight, good soil, and air. And 3, it grows into a healthy plant or tree that brings life, fresh air, and nourishment all around its environment and to the world. Should I go there? I think I will. Another example of manifestation is 1, Jesus Christ was crucified on a cross. 2, he died and was buried in the grave. And 3, he rose on the 3rd day, and like that tree, he gives life, and life more abundantly, I might add, to the world. All right, so there's excellent articles that you can read, and I dare you to look at it with a different lens. Okay, you can actually go on my website, and you go to the science.yourdictionary.com, and you read articles on plants, how they grow, and look through it at this lens of manifestation. You'll see manifestation at work. So that's number 3. Then you also know the number 6. Number 6 is the number of man. Now, all that to say this. A minor chord is also comprised of 3 notes played at the same time. In traditional music theory, when you want to know what key the song is in, you ask or simply look at the key signature. This key signature is linked to the major key of the song. It's no coincidence that a signature in regular everyday life is something used to authenticate and authorize something. All right? In music, a key signature authenticates the key that a song is in. It usually has to do with one main key. However, it is also linked to a key in music called the relative minor. Now, the relative minor is like the major key, but just a little less important. All right, so the relative minor key is also comprised of the exact same notes as the major key. By the way, the relative minor is the 6th degree of a major scale. Coincidence? I don't think so. Let's look at this further. The C major scale has the following notes: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. All right? So the numeric value is as follows: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the end. I mean, we call it an octave. I don't really call it an 8. It's just an octave higher. Octa is the root word for like octopus. You have 8 tentacles for an octopus. You have octagon, 8 shapes. Octa in music, just the melodic distance of 8. So when you get to the 8th, it's really just C again. So it's really the number 1 that starts again. For example, if you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, after Sunday comes Monday again. So it's the same process how God created. Okay? So therefore, in the key of C, the relative minor is an A minor. C, D, E, F, G, A is relative minor, A minor. And it specifically contains an A, a C, and an E. All right? The major chord contains a 1, 3, 5. Okay? A 1, 3, 5, C, E, G. A 1, 3, 5, which a 1 is for God, a 3 is for manifestation, and a 5 is for grace. The message, see, the music speaks. God designed the music to speak because He is music. He speaks through the music. If you listen and understand it properly, you'll hear Him speak to you. All right, so here's what He says in the major chord. He says, the 1 is God, the 1's for God, 3 is for manifestation, and the 5 is for grace. So the message of this chord is, God is the manifestation of grace. God is the manifestation of grace. Now, if you can play this chord, or if you hear this chord, you are experiencing the grace of God. That's why it sounds happy. Now, the minor chord contains a 6, a 1, and a 3. Okay? A 6 for man, a 1 for God, and a 3 for manifestation. The message of this chord is, a man God is manifested. Remember, we're created in His image. A man God is manifested. So the purpose of this chord is to confirm that we were created by God and created in God's image. We are not God, just like how I'm not my biological father, but if you know my Father, you will know that I am His son. All right? So the term minor should not be confused with or applied to any other number but the 3rd. See, I remember asking an accomplished musician and traditional theorist, according to your theory, seeing that a minor interval is associated with a key being lowered by 1 semitone, is a diminished associated with 1 semitone or 1 tone, which is 2 semitones? Would you believe their answer? They said, you see, traditional theory has to invent methodology that states that when you go 1 semitone lower on certain intervals, it's a minor interval. And when you go 1 semitone lower on other intervals, it's a diminished interval. Or on different numbers, it's a diminished interval. I mean, when you go 1 semitone lower from a key, it should be 1 semitone lower. Why the unnecessary confusion? Why? Because you are not supposed to see the simplicity of only associating minor to a flattened 3rd, and because the original flattened 3rd is really the God link. It is really the 1. If you look at the minor chord, the 6, the 1, and 3, C is the minor 3rd of A, and that's a minor 3rd. But the numbers are 6, 1, and 3, and as you can see in the middle, that is the God link. Maybe certain things have to be confusing so you can't see and refer that this is the God link. Now, saying that there are more, when you say minor, that it's other places, it's like saying that there is more than one God. It's like saying that there's 5 different gods or 12 different gods when there's just one God. So the minor is only associated with the 3rd. Now that your eyes are opened, you can now see how God created music. Every music professor or seasoned musician knows the foundational chords of music. They are found on the original numbers of the major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The chords would be as follows. Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, minor, flat 5, or diminished, and then it ends with the major. So I'll say it again. It's major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, or minor flat 5. Another term is for this chord is called a diminished triad. Now, every music professor or seasoned musician will tell you that this universal chord principle, they'll tell you this universal chord principle and order is not an assumption. Robert didn't make it up. They didn't make it up. But it is an undeniable fact. That is not a theory. That is an undeniable fact that these chords are the foundational chords of music. An undeniable fact. But first of all, let me cover the origin, the meaning, and the reason why these chords are associated with these numbers. Let's go back to creation. All right? Let's go back to the beginning. In God's creative process, heaven was created on day number 2. Now we can read this in Genesis 1 verse 6 to 8. Okay? Heaven was created on day 2. The number 2 is the number of agreement and witness. For example, in business, when you want to enter into a deal, there is usually a contract that is signed between two parties, whether it is two separate companies, two individuals, or between an individual and a company. This contract is also known as an agreement. Okay? Another example is when two countries want to enter into an agreement. Although both countries may have millions of citizens, the citizens of those countries are usually represented by two people, their presidents. Now, when both countries are in favor of the terms of the agreement and want to proceed, the infamous handshake symbol is made between the two. All that to say, the principle of heaven is the principle of agreement and witness. God wants earth to be like heaven. That's why he created Eden. Jesus Christ said in Matthew 6, verse 9 to 10, he says, "After this manner, therefore pray ye, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven." He also said in Matthew 18, verse 18 and 19, he says, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth, and whatsoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. And again I say unto you, that if two of you shall agree on touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father, where? Which is in heaven." Right? That is the principle of agreement. Now, how does this relate to music? As we read in Genesis 1, 26 to 28, God made man, which is us, in his image, and commanded man, which is us, to be fruitful and to multiply. Basically, God said, take what I've created, which is music, and make something nice out of it. So the answer as to why the chords are what they are on each number is the principle of agreement, the principle of heaven, the principle of day 2. Okay? This is how it applies to music. I'll use C as the example key because it's the easiest key to play in on purpose, and there's a reason for that. Okay? But you take a note from the 7 major scale degrees, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. And in this case, I'll take the first scale degree, C. Okay? Next thing you do is use a principle of agreement, and you count 2 notes up to find the second note. So there's C, you go D, E. All right, you get the second note. In this case, 2 notes up from C is E. Exactly. All right? You then use a principle of agreement again, and you count 2 more notes up from that second note. Okay? And that reveals your chord. In this case, 2 more notes up happens to be G. That's right. Okay? So therefore, when we put it all together, C, G, we get C major. So now you know the origin and why the type of chord on the first degree of a major scale is major. Now, if you use this process on all of the other major scale degrees, you'll come up with the chord for the number 1, which is major. You'll come up with the chord for 2, which is minor, the chord for 3, which is minor, chord for 4, which is major, chord for 5, major, chord for 6, minor, and the chord for 7 is a minor flat 5 or a diminished triad. This still has to do with the minor third, okay? I'm still on the minor third, so stay with me, okay? After you have all that, you can then clearly see God's creation called music and how it confirms his holy word, the Bible. See, God is number 1, also known as the perfect unison, 3 being 1, the perfect unison, and we are his image, the number 6, also known as the relative minor, okay? The message in the creation of this universal principle of music is a relationship, specifically a relationship between God and his Son, or you can say a relationship that God desires with his image, you and I. See, that is the foundation of music. it is no coincidence that when this musical relationship is understood, you get beautiful harmonies. Beautiful harmonies, all right? See, that's the foundation of music. It is no coincidence that when you truly understand that, then you will get beautiful harmonies and song arrangements. When you look at the foundational chords again, you will see that its composition is the revelation of this God and image relationship, this God and Son relationship. Okay? I'll put it like this in the key of C. I'll put it like an equation. Equation number 1. If God, which is major, equals C, which is the first degree of the scale, first scale degree, image, which is minor, that's us, equals A. And that's an undeniable fact, that's not theory, all right? That's the 6th degree of the scale. So major, and that's minor, all right? The other way of getting to the 6th degree, which is A, is actually to count down 3 semitones. 1, 2, 3. You descend 3 semitones. That's now going less. Minor, third, all right? Below your first degree. So you go 1, at your first degree, you go 1, 2, 3. That brings you down to your 6. That's how you could also get your relative minor. And isn't it a coincidence that when you go down to get to your relative minor, it's 3 semitones? I'm telling you, it's only for the minor third. A minor should be referred to as a third. So that's equation number 1. So now we have our 1, right? And we also have a 6. Here's equation number 2. Now, as you know, a major chord represents God and is on the first scale degree, right? However, when you look at all the chords, there seems to be a major chord on the 4th scale degree as well. So for this equation, I'll hypothetically also call the 4th God as well. All right? So therefore, if God, which is major, is F, all right, the 4th scale degree, then 3 semitones below should give me the image. So 1, 2, 3. So for the equation to be correct, the image also has to be minor. So let's check. So let's take F, 3 semitones below F, 1, 2, 3, I get a D. And D is supposed to be the image. Now, the question is, what degree of the scale is D? And what type of chord is naturally on that scale degree? You said it correct. D is the 2nd degree of the scale, and the original chord on that degree is minor. Okay, it's minor. Therefore, the God image or the God-Son relationship exists there too. All right, so now we've covered the 1 and the 6, the 4 and the 2. Let's go to equation number 3. So now, as you know, a major chord represents God and is on the 1st and 4th degree, scale degree. However, there seems to be another major chord on the 4th scale degree as well. Actually, there's another major chord on the 5th scale degree. So for this equation, I'll hypothetically also call the major chord on the 5th, I'll also call that God as well. Oh my gosh, this guy heretic. He says there's only one God. How come he's talking about 3 gods here? All right, anyways, if God, which is major, equals G, and that's the 5th scale degree, okay, 3 semitones below should give me the image. So for this equation to be correct, the image has to be minor. Let's check. 3 semitones below G, 1, 2, 3, is E, the image. Now, the question is, what degree of the scale is E? And what type of chord is naturally on that scale degree? You said it correct. E is the 3rd degree of the scale, and the original chord on that scale degree is minor. Therefore, the God image, 5 and 3, God image, God-Son relationship exists there too. Therefore, to summarize the chords, we have, all right, 1 and 6, relative minor is image. The 4 is major, the image is a 2 minor. You have the 5, which is major, the image is a 3. That's music, God image. Okay, so that's why the 3rd is only referred to minors only refer to the third. So, but I can hear someone asking, Robert, do you believe that there are 3 gods? My answer is no. But because God is music, he has revealed a truth about himself in it. And that truth is that God consists of 3 who are perfectly one. Now, earlier, the theorist that was saying these are pure qualities, the 4th and the 5th. No, it's pure qualities because those are images of God. The 3, the perfect unison, the perfect 4th, the perfect 5th, all 3 of those are one and they represent God. Okay? This is also the origin and the meaning, like I said, and the reason for the musical term perfect. It is no coincidence that this seemingly traditional music term is only used in conjunction with the 1st, the 4th, and the 5th degrees of a major scale. I hear someone asking, but Robert, what about the 7th degree? How do you explain that? My answer is, actually, I don't have to explain it. God already has. In Genesis 2, 1 verse 3, it reads, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the 7th day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made." Just like the 7th day, also known as the Sabbath, the 7th degree is also blessed and sanctified. It is also set apart and serves as a reminder that God rested on the 7th day of creation. I could go a lot deeper, but I'll save it for another episode of Revelation, the origin of music. God bless you.
Origin of music has eluded musicologists, professors, and scientists for centuries. They've succeeded to come up with theories, but not a comprehensive explanation. In May 2012, Robert Chambers was in Zimbabwe to perform at the Jazz Festival with jazz singer Prudence. He was also to conduct music workshops on playing the piano by ear. While preparing, he prayed a prayer that would forever change his life and the history of music. He prayed, "God, I want more of you in the method you gave me." For the next 4 months, he was downloaded with revelation that reveals undeniable evidence that God created music. The proof? Musical concepts like scales, chords fingering, progressions, and more can all be found in the Holy Bible. Coincidence? You be the judge. To get more info on Robert's paradigm-shattering book, Revelations, The Origin of Music, visit www.theoriginofmusic.com.